I agree with Mr. Wilson. I think that would be great, but I know sometimes the schools are waiting on donations to be able to purchase material.
I think that's important, and also important to remember that the PEF has their own board and make their own decisions, and to the extent that is true, it would remove an element of control from the school board. If it comes to you, you have the authority to accept it and then use it in the spirit in which it was offered. Whereas if it comes from them, they have the opportunity to control that through their board instead.
Well, I would argue that the donor directed and the PEF is not going to not comply with donor wishes.
Yeah.
But perhaps you're right about the smaller items, and if it's, maybe we should talk about the bigger
Yeah.
items.
Yeah, it's worth having the conversation.
Sure.
There are districts that do not have a direct support organization, and my observation is that it seems like every district in the state, it looks like a different animal. Everybody does it differently.
Sure.
So I think that it's worth having the conversation and examining that, and absolutely no reason not to put that ball in play.
Yeah, I mean, we got a $20,000 donation from Andrew McCutcheon to Fort Meade High baseball team. That's an awesome donation, you know. And then you want to make sure. I'm sure Andrew, who is all accounts a great guy, wants to make sure that's dealt with correctly. I have nothing to add other than it's very interesting how many former athletes are supporting, you know, where they came from. But yeah.
And one other point is that it really is up to the donor how they wish to dispose of their donation, and they may wish for it to go to a particular school and say so. So that's it's sort of like when you're dealing with wills. The reason they call it a will is because the will is theirs, it's their will, not the recipient's. So
I think too, the Disney grants that you're talking about, they have to be approved. If they volunteered 15 hours, somebody in that organization has to approve it. So if you're at PEF, how did you know that Joe Smith was at Davenport School of the Arts for 15 hours in these
Well, it
few
should just
days?
be a flow-through. It should just be a pass-through. I mean, it's just, you know.
I know how the
working
mayor
correctly.
system is set up. It has to go to someone in the organization where the money is going, has to approve it. But that's just how their system, the
Disney
system
works.
that she's talking about,
Right.
Disney works.
Maybe Mr. Bridges and Mr. Perone can get together and y'all can squash this or figure it out and come back with some recommendations. How you
push it
doing?
around on the plate a little bit. Yes, ma'am. We'd be happy to.
All right.
Wouldn't we, Mr. Perone?
Thank you all very much. All right, now moving along, C70.
Yeah, I pulled that just briefly for two things. I guess it's sort of a key piece of material for access points. So I guess it goes to almost every ESE student. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. And then there was a sole source aspect to it, and I was just curious what that was for. No suspicion or anything. I just wanted a little more explanation about that.
I have staff.
Okay.
Dr. Stanky. Would you?
It's for Access Points classrooms, which is mostly in our center schools. So there's about 1,200 students with disabilities that receive that specific curriculum. Those are the students whose IEP teams have determined and parents have approved for them to receive that level of instruction. They're not standard diploma seeking students. They're our lowest cognitively functioning students.
And have we been using these folks for a long time? Is that?
Yes, sir. It's the state recommended curriculum for Access Points classrooms across the state.
And so there's something about changing the structure of the contract going to 18 months. Is there, as opposed to, is there anything?
When the original contract was put in place, it started in January. So the annual renewal period was going January to January.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're trying to do is just get it on the regular cycle of our other instructional renewals for a June renewal date. So this contract will be 18 months.
Okay.
So we catch up.
Okay. Great. Thanks. You can put that back on consent if you want.
It is, right? Yeah, it's already been moved.
Oh.
Yep.
It's already back there. Okay, moving down to facilities. I had a question. Mr. Davis, and maybe I'm just slow today. On Rochelle and on others, we're doing a cooler freezer upgrade and replacement. I don't understand the recommendation and why router construction is involved in it. Can you help me understand that? This item would be R84, but all of them that I'm looking at, they have the same recommendation.
The items went out for bid, and I don't have the bid tabulation in front of me, but I can only assume that they were the bidders that came in at the lowest cost.
Okay, I just didn't know that Rada did the cooler freezer upgrade replacement. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so that's a standard statement. It looks to me like all of the schools have the same statement.
I'm sorry.
The recommendation, if you pull up that our 84, pull that one up, please.
Right, they are.
Okay.
That is the standard wording for the
Okay.
freezer
All right.
replacement.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything on those items? Move on to C71. R90, 91, 92. And then Human Resource Services, C72 through C74. And then moving on to the regular agenda, R76, 77. And R79, 80, yes.
On R79, again, just a comment about this, and I have no concerns whatsoever. I'm sure that naming this facility should be done. It's a wonderful thing to do. I guess my concern is this, we talked about it a little bit before. I did see the minutes from the SACS committee, but I don't know who's on the SACS committee. So I don't know if it includes just 2 people or 3 people or 40 people. I don't know. And the reason I bring this up is you might recall that we attempted as a school district to name a school after a high-ranking official, and the community pushed back. So I would hate to be in a position where somebody pushed back and said, well, the SACS committee approved it, and we pulled the list, and there's 3 people on the SACS committee. So I have no question whatsoever this is perfectly legitimate, but I would like to see who's on the committee who actually made the recommendation.
I'll try to get that. This is one of my school districts.
Sure.
I can tell you, Mr. Young did everything by the book, and if you knew Mr. Colin Smith,
Sure.
he
Yeah,
has
there's-
been a well-respected educator,
Yeah,
coach, community. Every time I visit Mulberry, and he's been retired since 2003, I am likely running into Mr. Smith. He is there, active. Everybody loves Colin Smith. I will,
Maybe what we could start
Let-
doing is to have the minutes.
Of the
Yes.
SACs,
The
that's
minutes.
usually what we've done.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
The
I
minutes
saw the
just
minutes,
weren't-
but the names weren't in the minutes. That was a little concerning.
okay.
Never is.
So I was wondering who serves on the committee. If maybe there's just a
Should be.
list of committee members somewhere.
A list,
That's,
but
we don't set SACs as a standard. It's across the board. So you wouldn't have 2 or 3 people, you know that, so.
Yeah. But I will,
It's standard.
Right.
yeah, we should have access to who's on that
Yeah, it should be
committee
signed
if it's not attached. I can try, or we can try to get a hold of Mulberry High School and see if we can get that
Well,
information.
it's okay. I'm just saying, in the future, if we could get the names, I'd just like to see who agreed to do it. So what if you had, 15 people on the committee and 8 people said yes and 7 people said no? That might be something we'd want to know, right?
Well, the other thing that maybe is unknown by some people at the table is it won't go forward without that sitting board member's approval.
Yes.
That sitting board member from that district also has to write a letter of approval.
So I've known about this for a long time. Like I
Sure.
said, this is something that I know the community. He's the vice mayor of the community.
Sure, I
But like
know
I
now.
said, he is there, visible all of the time. if I go to Mulberry, I'm going to run into Mr. Collins. Smith.
I think that a lot of us know Mr. Smith, and he's very well respected. I think probably what we need to put in place is to have copies of the minutes and then a list of the people that was in attendance at that meeting. When it comes to us for recommendation, and they can take care of that. That's the concern that I'm hearing.
Thank you.
And we may need to be sure that's in our procedures. That
It's
it
in
is,
there.
that the names of, okay, then it just wasn't.
Pretty sure.
And we'll try to get it.
Look it up.
Okay, the next item is the Bartow Senior High School Master Plan. I was excited to see that on the agenda. I'm sure Ms. Sullivan is
Yeah.
too.
I will tell you, the community, and when we talk about chambers getting involved, they realize the importance of being involved in advocating for our public schools. I can't tell you how patient Bartow community has been. The odd thing over the years, of course, you know Bartow has the IB program, and it has, Summerlin's a little different because they do have a new campus, but many times I have not had long-term community members come speak to me about the horrible conditions of the facility like I have new people moving in or people that have sent their IB kids down to Bartow, and they've just, been really frustrated. And of course, we've been frustrated because literally the money ran out before we got to Bartow. But the community is so supportive. They will work and help us, and they understand that the completion of this project, these are the planning parts. The completion depends upon the half-cent sales tax being renewed, and they completely understand that. But I want to thank the community. They've been gracious. They are willing to do anything it takes to get this done, and they've been very patient, waiting for improvement to that facility. And I have to commend the teachers. We have got some model academies there, and I will tell you the facilities they work in are not model facilities. They have worked around the challenges and obstacles of a building that is substandard in many ways, and they're also excited because I see what great things they can do with kids in the facilities they're using now. I just see the success that they can have when they have facilities that can properly accommodate what they're doing for those kids. So, thank you. And thank you to the community of Bartow.
Mr. Wilson, you serve on the Sales Tax Oversight Committee, and I'm not sure when would be a good time for you to maybe come back to the board and let us know where the committee is on the sales tax renewal.
Sure.
And I know that we can't openly go out and do the solicitation to get it on the ballot for approval, but we're going to need to identify a group that will. And I know that we need to start thinking about that, so.
Yes.
I don't know when your next meeting is, but maybe you all can kind of have that on your agenda.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't met yet, but that's going to be number one on my list to identify a group that will take the lead on that initiative.
I have a couple of thoughts on that as well.
March 14th is that
So,
next meeting.
maybe I can share those thoughts with Mr. Davis, who I think might help with that. Okay.
Can I have a couple of questions on the plan itself? I just, I'm sorry for this. I seem to be a bad navigator of the agenda, but so we're going to be designing and building a few. We have enough to build a few things, but not everything. Correct.
Correct.
I read this somewhere. Now I can't find. Will you? So it's the 17,500,000 gets us through design, and it gets us through several needed
Through
buildings.
phase one, and we have some handouts. We didn't know. Richard, if you want to bring those up.
Yeah, I'd like one, please.
We can hand these out. We weren't done in time to put them on the agenda, but
Are you going to share this with the Sales Tax Oversight Committee at your next meeting?
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You'll see there's phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is the $17.5 million that's approved by the board tonight.
Thank you, sir.
That will cover adding an addition, and then some demos of buildings that are over 50 years old or in 1950s.
I got some more.
Then Monday was the architect that did the design process, and the committee was very much a part. And those were the community members and some of the staff that worked together to get to this point.
All right, just help me out a little bit on how it looks on the computer versus me. I'm just trying to, so the and no, that's fine. I mean, I can follow up with you, I guess, on it. It looks like, so how much are we demolishing?
So
Just
it looks like the demo phase of phase 1 is building 10, 11, 8, 7, and a small portion by building between 7 and building 4. And if you flip to the next 11 by 17 page,
oh, I see. Okay. That's. I was missing the second page. Matches up with what's on my screen. Okay.
I'm just trying to show the
Yeah.
demo and then what's going back. And then on the front page, it kind of gives a scenario of what we're actually demoing, which is around 30,000 gross square feet, and we're actually adding 83,000. So there's quite a bit of growth there as well.
Mr.
so
Davis,
can I ask you something?
you going to present this tonight?
I can if that's, I'd be happy to.
When you said that we ran out of money, or
Well-
what like on the original burst of,
Most of the high schools have had a master plan redo.
okay.
And Bartow was at the end, and they did not, you've seen the total, Kathleen and Auburndale.
Kathleen was at the last one too.
Yes, they were at the
Kathleen,
end.
Forever. I
And
was
then
almost- Yeah.
Bartow, the downfall where Bartow.
Kind of the odd one out.
And, I have two, Mulberry, but Mulberry has land issues that we have to resolve before we can even determine what, and I know you're looking at Mulberry, but there's some real, it's built on a hill, and it's not solid, because you need to go up, but the land, I understand, there's some real
Yeah.
land issues. So there's got to be an even greater plan for Mulberry. So Bartow logically doesn't have those issues. So, but Bartow and Mulberry are still two of our high schools that have not had a total master plan. And Bartow's been, I will tell you, we've had to Band-Aid some things at Bartow High, which we waited and waited to do, because you don't like to Band-Aid, spend money to remodel something that eventually has to come
You have
down.
to rework it.
But we could not wait any longer, because Bartow was in dire need. And the community now is very, very concerned. They want excellent schools, they see excellent programs, but a facility. And there's some things, expansion of programs and things that they could offer if they had the appropriate building. And Bartow is growing, and I know Bartow is going to grow. I see all of those apartment buildings in Highland City, and all of the high school kids that may live in there are zoned for Bartow. So Bartow is going to continue to.
I'm on board. You got
Okay.
it. So, but the one question, so this is the 17.5 million, this is new money that's been generated recently it's not like left over from
It's
we had to
sales
stop
tax.
at some
Sales
point.
tax.
Well,
Sales
tax.
I know it's sales tax, but it's the way I understand this, we had a big chunk of money that we bonded at the beginning, spent that to build a whole bunch of stuff. And then, I guess what I was saying is there was a period of time where we couldn't build anything. Have we accrued enough money as it's ongoing to build this, or is this just part of the original bonding?
Now, this is funds that we have available, that we don't have to bond.
Right.
For the phase one.
But they weren't available 3 or 4 years ago, I guess.
No.
They've accumulated recently. Okay, that was mine.
And to do further work, we've got the plan so that if for some reason we didn't get the sales tax, this would be it. But there will be further work based on the
Right.
continuation of.
Ben realized that if we had to be the school had to be operational after phase one, because if the funds are not there to go into phase two, that school had to be a functioning high school, because it could be years until we get that, and if the half-cent sales tax doesn't get renewed.
Do we have,
And then Miss Sarah, Mr. Small?
Oh, just kind of add on a comment to that, because I've been working on the same committee. So for instance, a construction academy, when Ben came back with the drawings, the money for this phase ran out. And so the committee is committed in partnering with businesses to raise the money to pay for that, to add on to this phase. And they've made a commitment that they would, if they had to, spearhead the half-cent sales tax, so they are on board. Yeah.
What's the full projected cost of all of it to do the full master plan? I'm sure that number's here, but what is it? If this is 17
It's hard
million,
to say. The phase two, we know that if the community can raise about $500,000 to $800,000 more, that the construction academy can be built. And that's what I think Mr. Small was discussing, because it was discussed at the chamber meeting event Saturday night. And so the community is looking at raising anywhere from $500,000 to $800,000 to look at getting the construction academy. But then going into phase two, it's hard to determine, but it could be another $18 to $20 million.
So this is like a third to a half of what we want to do, basically. Okay.
do we have any kind of timeline for when the first phase will take place, or how long it will take?
Richard Alderman, if he's got the timeline in his head, but
I went to Winter Haven when they were redoing Winter Haven, and we didn't have a cafeteria for a year, and we didn't have a library for a couple of years.
Right.
So looking at that a science lab is being torn down, it's a little concerning that what are we going to do without science labs for a year? That would be my biggest
Right.
concern, is do we have other areas on campus that, like at Winter Haven, all of the science labs are in one building. So if we tear down that one building, nobody's going to have chemistry for a year because we don't have the access to do it. So.
And unfortunately, this will be a lengthy project as you went through at Winter Haven. The science labs, we have 21 portables that will come in. We will have a science
Okay.
lab for the
I
students
just,
to
eating
operate.
outside is a little bit different than mixing
Right.
together chemicals in the open space. So that was
Right.
the one thing to comment.
Anybody else have any questions about Bartow, master plan? Okay, before you leave, I might as well stay there. The health clinic,
Yeah.
I think this is a nice problem to have, that we're having to convert to 2 to 4 exam rooms, because we just have so many people that are in need of services. This is one of the things that we can be proud of, that we've been able to accomplish, not just in Lakeland, but also in Haines City. So
Right.
you want to maybe just kind of talk a little bit about that?
It's actually Joy Myers that's really spearheaded
Who's
this.
Miss Joy?
She's not here.
Okay.
I could talk a little bit about it. We had plans to expand, but that would be a more costly project. So for the time being, we're just going to run this program, which is going to add 3 or 4 exam rooms with current offices, and we're going to move people around. And so that'll be funded through the program. But we have absolutely maxed out the space that we have. As you said, that is a very good thing, and people are using the clinic, and we get very positive reviews from it.
And so eventually, I would imagine we're going to be needing to look at another pocket of the county for another clinic. And that would be, what funds?
It would be the same, it would be the health plan.
No, the funds. The funds. If we're going to do another clinic.
Yeah, through the plan itself, that's where we use the funds, this for the past one, the last one.
Okay.
We do the capital construction through the plan. The plan fund it.
Yeah,
The health plan.
The plan. Good.
Yeah, there was 1 point, I want to say, or just around 2 million for that. We used the, now, obviously, the board puts in the premium for employees, and that goes into the plan, and then there's a fund balance there, and that's what.
But it's not something we have to pay for out of our general capital. It's plan specific.
Well, yeah, we would bring that when it's feasible and that we can do that.
I think it's great. What about the next item? Bus purchase?
Okay. The bus purchase is replacing about 6.1% of our fleet. We're over a 15-year replacement cycle. We like to operate. The state recommends a 10-year replacement cycle. So we're over that, but we understand the funds aren't there. So the 39 buses is replacing about 6.1% of our buses. It also is putting more buses with seat belts and more buses with air conditioner on them, on the road. So we're excited about that. And it's getting buses that are older off the road that cost a lot of money to maintain. Some buses we can't even find parts for any longer that are 19 years old. So.
Mr. Harris?
I just want to go on record as encouraging staff to go back to the 10-year cycle if and when funds are available. I think it is a time issue with getting kids to school on time when you have breakdowns. It's also a public service, in my opinion, to having sufficient buses of reliable condition. I know we have kind of been forced into extending our bus purchase cycle as well as our white fleet purchase cycle, as well as computers. And none of those are something that at least this board member is in favor of. I understand because of financial constraints with the downturn in the economy, we didn't have any choice. But I certainly want you to know that I support going back to, as soon as possible, that 10-year cycle.
Okay.
Is there any, this may be a very dumb question, but we have a pretty active and creative county transit organization right now as well. Do you guys have any regular contact with them? Is there any area for overlap or for collaboration? I know Tom is pretty open to partnerships as a whole, just in a general sense.
Actually, that's a great question, because around 4 years ago we went into partnership with Sisters Connection and the Mass Transit Organization, and we called the program COLTS.
COLTS, right, yeah.
And so we do use that for our high school students. 9th through 12th graders, they have to get their parents' permission, and once they get that, they have a stamp that they have on an ID tag, and they're allowed to ride the bus after school hours if they stay for tutoring, whenever the bus schedule is running. So we've definitely worked with them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually familiar with the COLTS program, but I guess what I was asking, and this was triggered by someone telling me that the transit organization has actually been hiring a lot of our diesel mechanics right out of technical college, they're able to hire people right out of their work, and we're sort of mentioning how we're all sort of competing for the same folks. I didn't know if there was any, and that just got me to thinking about the possibility for synergies, if there's some way to share mechanics, if there's some way to, you know, I know a transit bus and a school bus are a different thing. I just, if we're talking about or having any kind of regular meetings along those lines, just to see if there are any possibilities.
And we haven't had regular meetings. We've ran some ideas across as joint fueling sites. We've worked with the sheriff's department and put in a joint fueling site for propane. We've done some other partnerships with different agencies, and you know, years ago, you know, I wish we would have done more with fuel stations, where we, you know, the district didn't have 9 fuel stations, and the Board of County Commissioners have 9 fuel stations. We went in together, but that's, you know, water under the bridge. But moving forward, we realize that that's something that we will always work together with.
Well, I would, if there's any constructive role I can play in helping with that, let me know.
Okay.
I just think they're a pretty good asset, and it'd be good the more we could work together.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Davis, the next item is the purchasing of White Fleet.
Yes, ma'am.
I had a question on that. How do we go about getting bids? Because I see that the vendor is not from Polk County.
It's state contract bid. We go directly off the state contract. We don't do an internal RFP, and the pricing is extremely hard to beat when it's a state bid. We've looked at the sheriff's bid. However, the prices on the state contract are extremely tough to beat.
Well, I thought that was the answer, but I wanted to verify that. Thank you.
Yes,
You had a lot of stuff today.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That's all that we have for the agenda for today's board meeting. And I think this would be a good time to take a break. How many minutes? Maybe 10?
10.
Okay, 10-minute break, please.
Board members, we're going to start with policy updates from Wendy Dawes. She has to leave to get to Tallahassee. So Wendy's going to bring us a few board member updates.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We have 4 policies that were on the agenda for review. One is a bylaw definitions that's just a replacement because we're updating our technology policies, and so in order to do that we need to update the definitions. And the other 3, one is facilities planning, maintenance, and vending machines. Were there any questions about any of the updates?
Mr. Harris?
I just wanted to find out a little bit about, because the preface was that this came from YOLO because of state requirements. But could you educate us on the 7100 policy about why the $300,000 threshold? Where the superintendent has to evaluate alternative construction methods.
I'm trying to remember from there.
What's magical about $300,000
I want to
versus $1
say,
million or
I want to say that it was statute change.
And who determines what alternative construction methods are? The superintendent or?
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't have Rob here to help me, I'm sorry. I believe that we can, as a board, we can determine what alternative, but the purpose of the alternative construction methods are things that save us money.
Well, going the opposite direction. I can recall having worked in facilities after Hurricane Andrew when the state went the opposite direction and required us to be to construct buildings to a much higher, more stringent construction code. Well, that was certainly an alternative in Polk County because we at the time did not have to meet that. And they were having Zone 4 buildings in Miami-Dade, and we weren't required to do Zone 4 because we didn't have the wind load issue here as they do in Miami-Dade. So I think the $300,000 and the alternative construction methods leaves a lot to be interpreted as to the why and what they're for.
The 300,000 is there for a reason, and I want to say it was either a statute change or a rule change.
But we don't know why the statute would have put in that number. Then it just,
No.
that's going to be an outdated number in a couple of years unless they build in an inflationary factor. So it's kind of strange to put in a number that's going to be outdated almost by the time it's implemented.
That's true.
And the second one I had was on maintenance.
Okay.
I really do not want the school board to be responsible for sidewalks. And the fifth line, including safe access ways from neighborhoods to schools.
Are you
That's
talking
not in
about
our
line number 10?
Line number 6, 5 and 6. And that's not in the school board's purview to construct sidewalks. We don't have the authority nor the funding to purchase the right-of-way and to construct those sidewalks from neighborhoods, whatever the definition that is, to schools. And to put this into our policy and say we're committed to adequately providing for safe access ways from neighborhoods to schools really scares me in terms of us assuming that, because I know it's an ongoing conversation with municipalities and counties and school districts as to who's responsible. We don't have the authority to eminent domain of people's property to build a sidewalk or to purchase the property, nor do we have the funding to do it.
So would you like to just put a period after facilities?
I think from a covering the school district's responsibility, that would be much wiser to do that. But I didn't know where that came from and why we would be even looking at having the responsibility to provide safe access ways from neighborhoods to schools, because, well, that gets into a strong conversation as to what a neighborhood is. The front entrance to a subdivision, or all the way in the back of the subdivision, or out to the end of Rock Ridge Road, or
No, I know,
whatever.
I understand.
Is this Florida statute, I'm trying to look at the bottom of it, it's 1013.35. If this is a statute,
We got a problem.
it doesn't matter whether it's in our policy or not if it's
Everybody's got a
statute.
real problem with that
Yes,
statute.
that's what,
I'll double check, but I don't, because it's in the board recognizes paragraph, I think that it's introductory language and not necessarily.
then it definitely needs, I agree with Mr. Harris, it needs to come
I'll double check that it's not
out.
required.
But-
I'll double check with Neola that it's not required because of statute, but I don't think that that was a different statute
It is
covering
get them to cite
hazardous walking.
requiring it.
We have a
If it is
definition.
required, get them to cite specifically what's
Right.
requiring it, as well as the $300,000
Right,
question.
and we just dealt with in a different policy the hazardous walking conditions, which makes me think it would have been in there if it was part of statute.
Does access ways have a definition? I mean, could we just be talking about the entry to the driveway? You know, what's the,
Not to my knowledge, I don't believe that it's in our definitions, as far as a statutory definition. I can find out. I don't think that it does though.
do we ever pay for sidewalk? I'm sorry, can you go? Okay.
I think we need to pull this one
Okay,
and get some answers.
and pull it back? Okay,
Yes.
we can do that.
In partial response to that, we do, I believe, build sidewalks that are contiguous. The question that has come up in cases is how far contiguous goes, because there originally were counties that said if it touches the property at a point, then however far it goes is contiguous. And I think that the courts have restricted that. But I do believe that we sometimes make provision for constructing things, you know, on our campuses and contiguous to the campuses, but not beyond that. And I was just reviewing the statute, and I think it's somewhere else, so we'll have to.
Well, my preference would be have a period after facilities also, unless we're required to do it by statute. And it seems to me that's That's a county issue, I think. Right?
Well, and just to clarify, because this is a first hearing of this policy, we don't necessarily have to pull it. You as the board have the authority to modify the statute prior to, and you can actually modify it at a board meeting when you're doing your final hearing also. So do you want to pull it and bring it back to a work session, or would you like me to work on it and bring those changes to you at the final hearing of the board meeting?
I just know there were a lot of questions, not answered. Mr. Harris, what's your,
I don't know if you have the time to be able to pull all that together between now and the next board meeting. That's part of the question, I think.
Well, and I would just say that Mr. Davis's staff went over this policy very thoroughly, and I think part of the problem is that I don't have as much knowledge as they would have if they were here to answer your questions. I feel very confident that they know why that's there.
Ms. Cunningham? Okay. So is it the pleasure of the board that we just pull it and bring it back?
Okay.
We'll pull it.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, now I'm gonna move back up to item 3, mindful school positions for the grant.
Good afternoon. We are just bringing this item. It's actually 2 positions under the Mindful Schools grant. One is a new position, and the other is just a job description of a current position. One is a coordinator for the Mindful Schools grant. Both of these positions are completely funded by the grant itself and will expire when the grant is over. So it's no cost, no additional cost. It has been approved by the Florida Department of Education. The funding is already there based on the funding that was left over from last year.
Mr. Harris?
Quick question. You're new to the position, so I'll kind of back up a little bit and tell you where we were coming from as a district. But we've had many conversations here at the table in regards to soft funding positions, grant funding, and the fact that the expectation is that those positions will go away when the grant goes away. What are we doing as a district to notify the staff on the front end that this position is a limited time position, to not expect it to go past X, meaning the end of that contract? And as I did when I was in charge of a grant, I was encouraging staff to make sure that they prepared themselves in that period of time to apply for a different position when the funding ran out, should that grant not be renewed. Some took the advice, some didn't, but that was their personal choice.
Okay. Generally, when the position is advertised, I'm going to say it's something in here that says that this is a grant-funded position. So when that position is advertised and the person does apply for the position, then they know up front that it is a grant-funded position and that position is subject to those grant funds being available.
We know that, but I'm not sure that everyone who would ever apply for a grant job knows that it's AKA soft funding. It will go away at X date unless the funder extends that or we win another round of that grant. I'm just saying I feel it's more prudent to advise the incoming employee that this is a position that will go away. There's no renewal of this. In their head, they shouldn't expect that job to go beyond the end of the contract, so that they don't have any misunderstanding that, well, I thought, this was like a teacher's job and it just continued on. I mean, I worked under soft funding for 12 years, or 9 years, so I understand that. But not everybody, I don't think, understands going in for the first time that a grant might not be till the end of their career.
What we could do then in the letter, in the employment letter that they do receive, is place that in the letter as well, so that they acknowledge it as well. So that's something that we can do.
I just think it would be fair to them to let them know up front and encourage them. Make sure you come up with some alternative employment options for yourself in case this grant does go away.
Will do.
So we will add the employment letter?
Correct.
With dates.
With dates.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Townsend?
Ask a question about the entire grant, and just so I understand, and everything on the org chart in green is what's funded by the grant, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So you've got 2, 4, 6 sort of full-time people in the schools directly. Is that how I read that, who are out doing work sort of on a daily basis in the schools? Is that right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7.
Yeah, I guess I was counting the psychologist, the social worker, and the 2 intervention facilitators. And so is the
And the
mental health
coordinator as well.
Okay, so she's out in school, or he's out in
That's
school.
the way I understand it. Is that correct, Dr.? Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jim Maxwell, Director of Student Services, and I'm over the grants. All right, so the way it breaks down, we have 7 people, and yes, they're all out in the schools. We have 6 target schools that are selected by the 2 grants, and the grants bring us, by the way, about $1.5 million a year. Pays for salaries and also for training, largely, with the 6 schools. 5 of the 6 schools are top 4 turnaround schools. So these are schools that can use the additional assistance. We've broken the grant team into 2 teams. One team serves 3 schools, the other team serves the other 3. These 2 positions I'm asking for will assist us to put 2 more people into those schools.
Okay, so one of them is taking on some administrative role that would free someone else up. Is that how I'm reading that? It seems like one of them is sort of a coordinator role and one of them's a more direct role.
Yes, well, frankly, how it worked when the grants were written, I vastly underestimated the need for reporting with federal grants. And so one of these positions is going to assist us with the reporting, which allows our senior coordinator, who was the director of PBIS at Hillsborough, district-wide position. She's very knowledgeable. That allows her to get into the schools more. Someone else provides the reporting, so it's as you said.
Okay, good. And tell me again, PBIS.
Yes, Positive Behavior Intervention System. That's the multi-tiered system of student supports to teach social, emotional, behavioral skills is the point of one of the grants.
Great. Awesome, thanks. That's what I did.
Questions? Okay. Thank you. Next, we have the Title I continuation. Maria, Dr. Maria.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So this is a presentation of 3 Title I federal projects, the Title I-A for economically disadvantaged students, the Title I-C for migratory students whose family travels seeking agricultural work or fishing work, and the Title I Part D, which is the federal project for neglected and delinquent students in our district. And these are continuation grants. There is nothing substantially different in these continuation grants. However, I have updated a number of job descriptions to better match what the staff are doing with the actual job description. And as part of that, one of the position titles I did change from, they're both associate technicians, but instead of support services, to better reflect that this person is working on data. Again, the data reporting that is part of that federal project is enormous, and so this person will be focused on that for us. Any questions?
Again, just a structural question for my own understanding. The $37 million is Title I school-wide. Is that generally what we refer to when we talk about Title I?
That is what most people consider as Title I, but as you can see, Title I is multifaceted and has different strands. But yes, sir.
And are these 3 strands the sum total of what we get from Title I, or is there another just from our
Actually, there is another one that you will see coming, which is Title I School Improvement. That one is released much later, and we haven't yet received the award letter for that, but it has already started in October. That is the Title I School Improvement Project, 1003A.
Okay,
There's also a component to Title I school improvement that is a competitive strand, that is the 1003G. We have not heard yet whether or not we have been awarded that one.
What's the rough amount of that, of the one you mentioned before it's already started?
That 1003A, 1.4 million.
Okay. Thanks.
Mr. Wilson?
That was my question. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Short and sweet, thank you.
So there's no need for the break, so we're going to move right to the charter schools. Renewal information. Do you have a PowerPoint going up, Ms.
I
Brady?
do, right here.
Okay.
I brought the PowerPoint for you so that
It's a
you
hard
can have it
copy?
in front of you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And this is going to be a discussion with two of the charter schools, Compass and Magnolia. We're going to discuss Compass first.
That's correct.
There you go. You're welcome.
Okay, good afternoon. For the sake of our new board members and as a refresher, I'd like to take a moment to walk you through the process of charter renewals. The schools that I bring before you today are charter schools that have been approved by the Polk County School Board and have a current contract. At the end of the contract term, it is the responsibility of the district to either renew or terminate those contracts. The renewal process is quite rigorous and begins a year prior to the contract's end. Both of these schools' contracts expire June 2017. The renewal team is comprised of district experts from ESOL, ESE, Finance, HR, and Curriculum. As a team, we review the renewal documents that the school is required to assemble. You have copies of the document, and they have been attached to the agenda today. The contents of the renewal document are far more in-depth than what I will present today, but they are given to you as further reference. Let me quickly walk you through the steps. The school receives a template from the district office and they're asked to complete it. They assemble documentation that shows that they are a viable organization, that they show student performance growth, and that they are fiscally sound. When they return that document, it is then distributed to board members and to superintendent, deputy superintendent, and the charter review team. At that point, it's reviewed at length, and then a site visit is scheduled, and the team and I visit the school. At that point, we have an opportunity to talk to administration, teachers, students, visit classrooms, look at HR documentation, look at school offices. We take members of finance as well, and so they also do a financial overhaul on their documentation. Once all of that's finished, we convene as a group and we talk about our findings. If there's anything significant, we will respond to the school in writing, at which time they have an opportunity to respond back to us with anything that they might feel is incorrect or hasn't been stated in a way that, or maybe we missed. And so they return that to us, we discuss it as a group, and then we vote as a charter review team as to whether or not we would renew the school contract or deny it, and that would be our recommendation to the superintendent. At that point, our recommendation goes to the superintendent, and then she recommends those schools for approval or denial to the school board. So that is the process. So the charter review team looks for the following evidence. Is the academic program a success? Is the school a viable organization? Is the school faithful to the terms of its charter? Florida statute gives us really 5 reasons to terminate a school. 1, the sponsor shall make academic achievement for all students the most important factor when determining whether to renew or terminate the charter. The sponsor may also choose not to renew or may terminate a charter for any of the following grounds: failure to participate in the state's education accountability system, failure to meet generally accepted standards of fiscal management, violation of law, or other good cause shown. And if you have questions about that at the end of the presentation, I'm sure that Mr. Bridges would be happy to oblige. Some background about Compass Middle School. Compass is an at-risk school that opened its doors in 2002. From 2012 to 2014, the school received a declining rating. The perpetual decline in student performance over the 3-year span prompted district action. In 2013-14, district staff met with the school's administration and began to work to support an increase in student performance. The Polk County School Board requested the school be placed on a corrective action plan to be regularly monitored by the district. During that time, district staff visited the school and saw that the corrective action plan was fully implemented and supported by Compass staff. I feel it is important that the board understand that 3 years ago we were looking at closing the school, but since then the school has taken every district recommendation and has proved that they are heading in the right direction. The charter review team was impressed with the school's evident positive culture and students' academic engagement in each class we visited. The dramatic decline in discipline referrals and student performance data, an increase in student performance data is absolutely telling of how the school is improving. Among Polk County's alternative schools, Compass scored the highest learning gains in both ELA and math in 2015 and 2016. More impressively, Compass scored higher learning gains among districts and charter schools' lowest 25%, which is the level 1, level 2 students that this school, the student population, in 60 schools for ELA and 53 schools in math. Today, Compass serves 139 students in grades 5 through 8. 86% of Compass students have been previously retained at least once, and 80% have failed the 3rd grade reading FCAT. The enrollment history of the school shows a small student population, which is part of the program's success this past year. Teachers are able to maximize differentiated learning to its fullest by meeting students one-on-one. Administration takes an active role in meeting students one-on-one, as well as an effort to encourage students and also to support their teaching staff. From 2012 to 2014, Compass received a declining rating on the Alternative School Improvement Rating. Polk County School Board requested a corrective action plan in order to increase student performance at Compass. Since the start of the corrective action plan, the school has met each goal and today has achieved a maintaining rating, which is the goal of an alternative program. Student performance growth may seem small, but it is moving forward. These students who come to Compass as level 1 and level 2, in most cases have been previously retained. It is important to remember that Compass had 42% learning gains in ELA last year and 37% learning gains in math, making them the leader in learning gains among our other alternative programs. On this slide, I wanted to just note some of the significant increases. They don't look like they're hugely significant because the numbers are relatively small when you think of a regular district school. But again, keeping in mind that this is an alternative school, these students have come to this school because they have failed sometimes twice before coming to the program. We saw that in 2014, 2015, specifically the 7th graders, only 17% of them scored a level 3 or higher, but in 2015, 2016, that same group, 18% of them scored a level 3 or higher, but 9.1% of them scored a 4 or higher. It's significant to note that the year prior, there were only 1.9 students who scored a 4 or higher of that same group. The school's strengths. Compass Middle School's Moving in the Right Direction motto is well represented by removing and adding staff to create a culture of caring for students while achieving academic goals, setting the expectation of each student and staff member, which was clearly demonstrated throughout the site visit, providing evidence of decreasing student discipline referrals. Renewal document page 17 shows the specifics of that. They ranked 16th in student performance among 101 alternative programs in the state, and that information can be found on FLDOE. Compass Middle School has a robust fund balance of over $1 million, and there have been no audit findings during the term of this contract. Questions for Compass? Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Fields.
Oh,
I think it's just amazing. I remember having conversation about possibly not renewing their contract and sending some very strong directions. And I want to commend, first of all, leadership at the school and the teachers. It has to be that to see the difference in what, a year, 2 years.
2 years.
Just amazing to me, and I just want to commend them. And it just shows you that it can be done if they really believe that the kids can learn, and it's evident that they believe that the kids can learn.
And I want to just, on their behalf, it's incredibly evident when you walk into the classrooms, shakingly evident, because every student absolutely understands the expectation for when they enter a classroom, when the class begins, which is difficult. Even in a regular classroom, it's difficult. The students know that it's all on the board. They know what the objective for the day is, the goal for the day, or maybe the goal for the week. They sit down and they open their planners, they write in their information, and they get their materials, and they sit, and they're ready for the lesson to be prepared. This we've visited the school. I've been there several times through walkthroughs, and it's not set up. This is exactly how this school is run. Because there are so few students, 139 total students, you see a bigger, I think, increase in student performance over a small amount of time, because you have that one-on-one intervention. What I thought was most impressive as a team member, and a lot of my other colleagues, when we talked about this, the thing that was most impressive to us is that the principal met with students every single week on Thursdays. They got a progress report, and those students who weren't making the cut, the principal took Thursdays, and she called the kids out, and she sat down with them, and she would ask them, what is the problem, what's going on. And every kid that we interviewed or we talked to, they said, our teachers understand when there's something going on at home.
Wow.
Sorry. Those kids are like, I'm a teacher, core. And so those kids always have my heart. I always like the ugly. And so when we talk to some of those kids who really have some rough, they're homeless, they don't go to school very often, the teachers show up at their doors, they bring them to school, they say, what's going on? How can we help you? How can we get you to the next level of learning? And that's what they do. And the numbers aren't fantastic, but the numbers show increase and they show progress. And I think that when you consider a core of teachers and an administration and students who feel like they're loved and challenged and appreciated and they're heard, I think that makes all the difference in a program. And so we had a tough 3 years. John and I sat with them 3 years ago, and poor Anita was the one crying. And because we were very, very adamant about what we wanted to see. And they kept bringing things to the table, and we kept saying, no, not going to work, bring in something else to the table. They would bring it again to the table. So this has really been a true district charter school collaborative, I have to admit, that's worked well. And I can't wait to see what next year's scores are going to look like for them. They actually are going to be graded now, so they're a little, there's some trepidation there. But it'll be okay, because I think they're doing the right thing. And so that's all I'll say about Compass. Sorry.
It's kind of him.
Just want to echo what Ms. Fields and everybody else have said. You obviously have a heart, Melissa, and you're definitely in the right position. And thank you for what you all do, because those are some of our most vulnerable kids, and we're able to take them and give them an opportunity. And I think it's just wonderful to hear the stories. So that's all I'll say. Thank you for your time and your dedication and all you both have done to work with them, to help them to be able to turn the school around and impact our students so positively. So thank you on behalf of the kids.
Mr. Harris.
I echo those sentiments. It's obviously not something you can change overnight, but it certainly is appreciated. I just have a technical question for you. If we could go back to the screen that shows enrollment history. If you could share with the board the difference in the raw numbers of students from that slide to the student performance slides, because
Right.
the raw numbers don't match up.
Right, because these are DOE numbers, so what happens is when student surveys are taken, those are the numbers that are recorded. So let's say if it was the FTE week and those were the numbers that were recorded for the school, those are the stats that we get directly from DOE. So if those students no longer attend that school and they're tested and tests happen, but those kids have gone on to another school, then that's where we see the deficit. Or sometimes that's where we see the increase, because those kids didn't make the enrollment FTE. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Okay.
That answers it perfectly.
I just wanted to recognize the hard work of the school, because to get these kind of numbers, when you compare them to our well-supported middle-class kids, they look dismal. But when you know who they're working with and just the effort that the teachers and the school staff has to take to get this kind of results, it's noticed. Sometimes the state doesn't recognize the hard, exhausting work it takes. And that's sort of what we talked about with the community-based schools that we're looking at, the resources that you need to be able to reach these kids. And they don't have a whole lot of extra resources. It's their hard work that they're doing to make it happen. So they're very much appreciated by the people that understand what it takes to help make these students
Miss Anita
successful.
Fine is the principal, and she's in the back of the room. So.
Yes.
Question. Why is there such a big drop between the 7th grade enrollment and the 8th? Like, this year you have 51 kids in 7th grade and 8 and 8th. Why is that?
You really want to see that? Because those kids are going back into programs because they've caught up. So that means that because that's the whole intent of the program, they work double grade levels sometimes. And so they might be working in the 7th grade to finish, they're finishing 7th and 8th grade. They finish and then they leave and we see a decline in them.
So the goal is to leave.
Absolutely.
It's to go
It
back
is
to a standard program. Okay.
Mr. Wilson?
I'd also like to commend you and your staff, Melissa, for working to make our schools successful. And I know it's a charter school, it's one of our schools. And there are kids, and kudos to the staff at the school as well. It's all too easy to say, you're not cutting it, so we're going to shut it down. So, I would hope we would see that approach and that effort, not only throughout our district, but really throughout the entire state. That's terrific.
I mean, to that point, one of the things you read in the report, you guys were interviewing some of the kids about what their good experiences and bad experiences were. One of the kids said something to the effect of, a bad experience is when it goes so fast and no one slows down to explain anything to me. And I think, that's an issue way beyond Compass Middle. Or anyway, there's a lot of our normal schools that you'll hear kids say that all the time, who are there right now, who may struggle and get a 1 or a 2. To the extent we can slow ourselves down, in the future, I think we'll be benefiting. So anyway, I was just struck by that. That's sort of a curriculum map issue, I think, for a different day. But.
Mr. Wilson? Mr. Wilson, your hand back up?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Magnolia Montessori. Magnolia Montessori is one of our younger schools. It opened its doors in 2013 as an alternative choice for educating students. It has since maintained its intent and has remained faithful to its mission and vision. Magnolia Montessori serves a very small population of students, which is sort of congruent with the Montessori idea of very individualized attention. You'll see that they serve 90 students in grades K through 6. Demographic is a little skewed, but I think you would find that in most of our Montessori programs we see this. It's not something that
Magnolia Montessori has even expressed a desire to, change those numbers and to move towards a more diverse population. But again, we're talking 90 students, and so sometimes it's a little more difficult to spread that demographic. When Magnolia first enrolled 6th graders in 2014, and I just wanted to point out the numbers because since Mr. Townsend mentioned this in the other school, you see the drop from 17 to 9 the next year in 6th grade, and it goes from 13 to 9. I just wanted to mention that. So when Magnolia first enrolled 6th graders in 2014, it was with the intention that they would add a 7th and 8th grade over the course of the next 2 years. 17 students were enrolled in the 6th grade. However, at the end of the school year, the school board decided that it would not be fiscally prudent to open a 7th and 8th grade. So when they mentioned that to parents at that time decided to enroll their students in middle school programs that were already established instead of only going through the first year of a middle school program and then having to go find something else. So we saw a decrease in numbers there, and so I want to just note that discrepancy there.
Okay. But to that point, for the most part, they're going up into the Lakeland Montessori
That's correct.
digital program.
In most cases they do, but in a lot of cases they do not. What we saw or in our interviews with Magnolia is a lot of those, I say a lot, it was a handful of students. They ended up going to All Saints, we got a list, Union Academy, and then some of our other academies and magnet schools. So they actually one went private and then one came back to district schools. The school's strengths. When the review team visited the school, we had an opportunity to talk to students, teachers, administrators, and visit classrooms. True to the Montessori method, the classrooms were organized and age skill appropriate. Most classes were engaged in individual lessons, while others were involved in directed learning. Students were focused and engaged while teachers worked one-on-one with individuals. Robotics, aquaponics, organic gardening, and hydroponic gardening are all part of the upper elementary curriculum. We have a complete aquaponics center in the back of this school. Their performance history, they had a rough start when they opened their school at first. They received an F, but since then they have maintained an A for the last 2 years. They did that, they went from F to A, and I know that the board asked me this question when they were under corrective action a few years ago. Well, how many students did they leave, or how many students left, or how many were dropped in order to get that F to an A? And so there were only 2 students that actually left between those years, so there really was no significant change in student enrollment that would reflect an FA idea. Okay, so these kids really worked hard. The staff worked hard. They had summer opportunities. They also had after-school tutoring, and so and also, one of the things about Montessori, if you're familiar with it at all, it's a very different curriculum, a different way of learning, and so in some cases, when you've got a brand new group of kids coming into an environment that they've never been a part of, and they've come from a traditional classroom, I can almost understand why perhaps they struggled, that in that first year. But now it seems like the boat is rowing in the right direction. They've done exceptionally well. Their student performance really doesn't even need any kind of narrative. If you look at it, you see that they are performing exceptionally well. You do see that there are very few students who are tested, but in all, they are top of their game. You do have both FSA ELA and you have FSA Math. Their financial history, they have had no audit findings during the term of their contract. They have a fund balance of $143,448.
Mr. Harris.
Melissa, I'd just like to revisit something that you pointed out. I want to be consistent in my questioning of charter schools in this regard.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Sorry.
You noted their demographics.
Yes, sir.
And their demographics don't anywhere come close to looking like the community's demographics.
Correct.
I realize that the demographics for Compass is somewhat skewed the other direction. But when you have less than 1% economically disadvantaged, less than 1% English language learners, they're not serving the community at large, in my opinion, if they're not reflecting the community. And I've said the same thing about charters that are located in District 7. You need to reflect the community in which you exist. What are they doing, and if they're not, why not, to address that demographic imbalance?
Well, they, in our discussions with them, they have been working to recruit as well as they can, but they have a waiting list. And so you know how that works is you have to make sure that the folks that you've recruited, those numbers of minorities need to be at least half or supersede the number of applications that come in for that lottery to take place for those numbers to change. I really don't have a good explanation for how to make that change. I know with 90 students, it makes it even more difficult to produce a demographic that is more equally distributed. And not only that, but with a Montessori program, a lot of the community are not familiar with Montessori, and so it's sort of a scary thing, I think, for some folks. And so I think it's all of those things combined. So I think we've got some fantastic Montessoris that are charters. We have Lakeland Montessori, we have Magnolia now, and I think as these programs continue and as they grow, I think the community understands more of what they are, and maybe by word of mouth, and we'll see,
But board members have said at this table and over have talked about the fact, the impact of poverty on performance.
Mm-hmm.
This is a perfect example of that concern. You look at how Compass is marketing, and you look at how Montessori is marketing, and you see a difference in the demographics, but you also then see a difference in the performance. I think they need to be aware that we're looking at that, and we're concerned that their demographics don't reflect the community in which they exist.
What are their retention numbers? You mentioned they only lost 2 kids after the first year. Has that been pretty consistent? What's their
One.
annual? So it's
the kids move. They very rarely lose a child. So.
I think Tim's point is very well taken, and I say that as a former Lakeland Montessori parent struggled with this exact same issue. Is there anything that can be written into the? Are there preferences on the wait list? How is that currently structured? Is it just straight up food clause?
Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
The statute it actually says exactly how you can prioritize your enrollment, and nothing in statute allows you to use demographics as a priority or use minorities as a priority. We can't do it at all. So basically the only true way to diversify is to go to the highways and the hedges and invite them to come in. So you have got to take your applications, you've got to take your message, you've got to take your school to the communities that represent minorities, and to make your demographic more equal. That's really truly, it's footwork. It's all about footwork, marketing, recruiting. That's what it is. And so in a lot of cases, and Magnolia is one of them, they work on a shoestring budget even more than any school. They did not receive startup funds when they started their school because that grant was not funded in that year. So they're one of the very few schools that started off in the negative as far as money was concerned. They weren't offered the same $450,000 was what our new Montessori just got this year to start a new school. So they have been operating on just what they've been given in FTE. So keeping that in mind, I think I can't really speak. I'm not going to speak for the school. I couldn't, but I would say that I will definitely take this back to them. I know that Tammy Cruteau is here. She's the financial advisor, so she's hearing all of this too, and she'll take it back to Ari Hollinger, who is the principal. She wasn't able to make it today, but they hear this, and so we'll see how the years go on. Yes, ma'am.
I think that whenever any group comes before us, it's always the same conversation, wanting to make sure that there is diversity and how that's going to be reached. And I know that that message is given by the board each time. So I think it's just a matter of just coming up with some strategies and figuring out how they can make that happen.
So I think that's part of the process when we start looking at it, they mirror the community.
And I have to say, and Mr. Bridges, you can, I don't think that that could be reason for non-renewal. Is that correct?
Articulate the reason.
Mirroring the community? Yeah.
Well, they're.
It's strongly encouraged, but it
Yes.
can't be something that we hold against them.
I think we can, those are things that we can encourage them to work on and to improve. But in and of itself, especially in a school that size, it would be difficult.
Ms. Fields?
We can't mandate it, but we can surely repeat it time and time and time again. And hopefully, at some point in time, everyone will hear it.
And my thought is with, 90 students, whatever percentage that is, from the whole group that we have, it's a very, very small, minute population. And also having visited Montessori schools myself as a parent looking to educate my own child, it's a very, very different system, an extremely different approach to the traditional school setting. And it's not for everybody. With all due respect, for those, some, it works wonderful, and for others, it just doesn't. So, I can understand offering the opportunities and doing, but ultimately those that choose it truly have to choose it for its merit and be 100% divested into that system and supporting it at home and so forth. So, I understand we're going to try to mirror the community, but in a school that's that tiny with 90 kids or thereabouts, that might change year to year. I'm not as concerned personally. Say that.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you much. We have two information items, and one is the financial statements. Mr. Perone, Mr. Pitts, give an update of the financials.
Good afternoon. I included in your file packet a summary of the monthly financial, which was not on the agenda item originally, so I wanted to include that. And additionally, page 7 of the monthly financial packet that in the agenda item was incorrect. We had a former financial in place of that, and I wanted to update that and tell you the difference there. We had in there was the page 7 had a projected fund balance of 7%, and it is actually 5.21, and I included that in your packet. And to say that it was 5.26 projected in the October financial, so they went down slightly in our projection, but I wanted to mention that because it was different than what you had.
I was going to ask you that too.
What's that?
I was going to ask you that too, but I found out.
Well, I wish I could say it was that. It would be better, but...
And that's of data right now.
Yes. 5.2 is what we're projecting.
5.21.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Next is our Head Start, and I think Maddie's here.
I'm wearing my Gucci bracelet today, 31 ways to count to 31. I did want to share with you, if I could, that the Head Start grant, we requested an expansion potential, and we were denied our expansion request. And it was disappointing, but what we know is we'll continue to service the children that we do have now. And I also wanted to share with you that our Head Start staff have been asked to participate in 3 things. One, the writing of the pre-kindergarten standards for the state. the other writing the test, the teacher test for the state, and a third for writing this, collaborating with the Region 4 to ensure that our state standards and our national standards and our Region 4 standards are all aligned. I think that speaks well, and not only my staff, but the board, who have all been so supportive of our program, and I just thought that you'd like to know that. Thank you. Thank you for
And can you tell us how many Head Start kids we serve and how many are on the waiting list?
Shoot, I don't have my paper here, but we typically double our service. So if we have 942 children that we are serving, and I happen to know this last Friday we had 941, because I said, where's that other child? 942 students we now have in class, and typically we double our service list with a wait list. That's not too unusual for the national average. Unfortunately, the funding that the grantees receive could be doubled, and our services could be doubled in most communities. And that is true of Polk County as well. We are fortunate in the state of Florida in that we do have a partial program called the Voluntary Pre-Kindergarten Program that serves a 3-hour a day with no support systems. And I think that that is important to note, that VPK only serves an educational component 3 hours a day and has 0 support systems, whereas Head Start has family supports and cognitive supports and social services. And so that the funding is very, very different. And we in Polk County have joined forces with our Title I program to extend that as well. So we have other options for our children, but there's still 8,000 children signing up for kindergarten every year, and we're serving like 25 totally between Title I, Head Start, VPK, and ESEPK. Still great differences. I also wanted to tell y'all that my children, our little pre-Kers, will graduate in year 2030. Just a reminder.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Let's hope that we're all here too.
I'm
really.
hoping I'm here.
Yeah.
Many of you will still be around.
Mr. Wilson?
Actually, I have a question for Mr. Fronek, if that's okay. We go back to him. Did he think he was off the hook?
Yeah, I got up a little early there.
Yeah, he's fine.
Just as a refresher and reminder, as I recall, we actually budgeted, was it 3.1%? And then the 5.1 budget was with the payroll lapse, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Just because we have some new board members. So the original budget was 3.1, and it gets to 5.1 with payroll lapse.
And prior to, we used to budget without payroll lapse.
Right.
That is
at
correct.
5%.
That's right.
But really, we're worse off.
Right, down.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
We're just hoping the payroll lapse
Works out.
works out,
Yeah.
although we really shouldn't be hoping.
Shouldn't be,
I
right.
know,
You want the-
it's a double-edged sword there.
and I think I had mentioned this, I talked to someone from Jacksonville, and she said that you don't typically budget your payroll lapse, that that's not a good practice to have.
Yeah, we certainly would not want to do that to get to 3.1. That would be
Right.
disastrous.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Townley?
About Head Start, it says there was a sort of a comprehensive reorganization of the performance standards recently.
Yes, there was a comprehensive and significant change to our performance standards for Head Start. It was released in November. Those performance standards were released the beginning of November 2016. There are timelines that we need to ramp up for full implementation. The first series of requirements begin August 2017. Those include all kinds of things from staff requirements to new fingerprinting requirements. Little heartburn,
Do any of them particularly worry you or need attention from the board or from anyone? Is there some sort of...
Most of them, sir, are changes to the way we operate, but not necessarily a significant change. Let me just share with you our fingerprinting process. We've always mirrored what the district has done in fingerprinting, and it was always acceptable. The new performance standards has added an additional level, the federal clearinghouse level, which is beyond the level or tier 2 fingerprinting that we have done here at the district. It's going to cost a little bit, and we'll have to arrange our budget. I don't think it's going to be detrimental. As new employees come on, August 2017 is the hard date for our new employees, and then we'll continue ramping up as our current employees, within their 5-year period of time, they'll take that, go to the clearinghouse for further review.
Are there any kind of child academic performance standards or anything like that that come with consequences? And is there anything like that built into the new stuff that's worth noting? That's just out of curiosity.
Well, let me just share with you, we have always far surpassed what they expected, yes. I'm very excited to say that our programs have always gone to the highest possible criterion and tried to support that in our classrooms. I think it's notable to say our Head Start children are the neediest of the needy, and we are performing there at the same rate as our voluntary pre-kindergarten children who have no income requirements in order to learn. So the last time we were reviewing that data, our Head Start children made a 92, and so did our voluntary pre-kindergarten children. They came in at the same rank, so we were like dancing on air. And so it's been really great to see that. I don't think it's changing any of that level of expectation, our academic expectation. But what it does change is our certification requirements and the number of service hours. So those are two concerns that we have that we'll have to address, and we'll be able to meet that by 2019 and 2020. So I have a little bit more time to retire before.
I can't imagine you dancing on air ever.
I am always dancing on air. This is really great. I have to tell you that working with Head Start since 2008, I believe that we as a body, as a school district, have begun to view our youngest children very differently, and we have seen great strides and increases. I'm excited about what's happening and what will continue.
So, do we have, because now we've had it long enough, to see, I would love to see these Head Start kids, their success rates compared to children that did not get to experience Head Start, like at 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. I would really love to see that.
That longitudinal
effect, because I see what you do, and that's what you can do with children when you have the support systems in place to really help them. And I'm impressed with what you do with the parents that you have cultivated and have brought along that are going to be lifelong supporters of education.
I will connect with Heather Wright to see what we can do about getting that report to you. And I did want to say that Sarah Beth Reynolds is on our policy council now, so I guess I'll see her on Thursday. And it's exciting to have different members from the board there.
I miss going, but I'm thrilled that
well, you can still come. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson?
Just a comment, and I had the privilege of serving on the policy council, as I'm sure most board members have. And it's the most remarkable thing to see the engagement of the parents. I couldn't agree more, and that's to the credit of Maddie. So thank you for all you do.
I have to say, you know, I just hang around and make sure the staff do what they do. It is my staff. I'm like blown out of the water. They're wonderful people. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no discipline hearings today at all. So we have a nice little break, and Edwina, are you checking on
It's
lunch?
supposed to be set up at 2.
At 2, so lunch is set up. Okay.
But the youth fair is going full blast, so
Yes,
if you want to
Hog
drop
sale
over
today.
there.
Yeah.
Hog sale is
Hog
going
sale
on.
today.
Oh yeah, I was told that the Bailey, the boy who was killed in the car crash, they actually sold his
Yes.
hog and made a big profit off of it, which is really nice.
Steer sale Friday night.
I mean, steer, hog.
You gotta go. You gotta go. You're talking.
So the hog
Just
sale.
take your shoes off.
The hog sale is used to be today. It's a big festival.
It's
No-
not a long
no
transportation.
correlation.
It's not a long transportation program.